Now, Vince Cable was on GB News. And so there was a discussion about China and their behavior, specifically when it comes to Uyghurs, specifically when it comes to the lack of human rights from the CCP and all the chaos that they have created globally. Now, for some reason, Vince Cable said that we should be careful with our language. Basically do not criticize the CCP that much because it's just hyping the language. We don't want to essentially upset the Communist Party in China. Now, some people might say that's just out of context. Some people might say that Vince Cable meant it. He's in the pocket of China. I'm not even saying either of those. It might be out of context, but there's still a bit of context considering he maybe doesn't understand the meaning of all the things that China have been doing, including against the Uyghurs, because his problem was specifically against the word, that we should not use that word when it comes to the Chinese Communist Party's behavior. It's not the first time though, is it? Because there's something deeply toxic about some of the liberal Democrats, politicians. Now, this is the one thing that you haven't actually heard anywhere, and we obviously had to do our research thanks to other websites and blogs who've done their studies on this. There have been a number of Lib Dem politicians who've been either very close to the CCP or quite sympathetic to the communists in China. First, let's talk about one of the former top politicians who is now, of course, trying to lead the movement of the Liberal Democrats, not really successfully, Ed Davey, who received £5,000 from the chief advisor of Huawei. Now, Huawei is a controversial company. We know that even the Western governments, some of them, of course, withdrew their contracts with Huawei in terms of infrastructure deals. Some of them didn't do it, but they still criticized them because they had to. It's all about PR. But considering Huawei is in the pocket of the CCP, there's no such thing as a big, free corporate enterprise in China. If you become a big, successful corporate, you have to be in the pocket of the government and the state. Otherwise, it doesn't work that way, especially when it comes to the digital world. Huawei is in the pocket of the CCP. Huawei have caused a lot of troubles across the world, including in Iran and Central Africa. Yet, the chief advisor of Huawei donated £5,000 to Ed Davey and his campaign. This is, of course, the name of donor, Sir Michael Rake, private donor, £5,000 towards the campaign leadership of the Liberal Democrats for Ed Davey. That's one thing. So you might say that's just a coincidence. It's just one donor. Doesn't really mean anything. Well, what about this other guy? We knew that the former advisor to Nick Clegg and the Remain campaign also a while ago went to China and joined the propaganda machine to essentially crush the movement in Hong Kong. The job was essentially to make Hong Kong China again and to completely destroy the rebellion that we are seeing on the streets of Hong Kong and to make Hong Kong and the whole of the CCP seem more stable and that there's nothing going on and it's just a few rebels and they're obviously in the pocket of the CIA and everything's basically, it just blame Israel for everything, and that's the whole point. Yet, the people who claim to be liberal, the people who claim to be Democrats, who are getting paid and getting these jobs with the CCP in China to do their propaganda on their behalf, doesn't stop here. The final one is our favorite, Danny Alexander, who was, of course, the right-hand man to George Osborne during the coalition years in the Treasury. And the guy who was supposed to be quite smart with economics. He actually was supposed to be one of the kind of more moderate Lib Dems, as opposed to someone like Vince Cable, who actually is a socialist. He also joined and he lobbied the UK government on behalf of the Chinese banking infrastructure to get the UK and the West in general, to get closer to the banking system in China. Again, as you know, the infrastructure banking system is in the pocket of the CCP. That's the whole point of the communist state. Even if they embrace the so-called free market capitalism, it's not really capitalism in China. It's a very, very specific state corporatism that's been sponsored by the communists. So it's not really free enterprise. Now, Daniel Alexander, his job was to essentially lobby and promote the banking infrastructure from the Chinese Communist Party in the West. Right, before I go, I just want to say a massive thank you again. I know I say every now and then, but I really mean it, to all of you who've now joined the new website, the new channel that we have, especially if you're joining from YouTube and other social media platforms. As you probably noticed, even this short clip that I posted was slightly edited and self-censored because we can't really post the full version on this anymore. And in this the whole full show that we just done today, we talk about more about China, the other C word that I can't even say, and post-Brexit Britain. We have some good news and some bad news as well, so we kind of mix and match the whole thing. So if you want to get the full and uncensored version of the daily shows, but also have access to the daily news articles and many other things that we have, then definitely check out mytousi.co.uk. Join us in our revolution to counter the mainstream media.